start by thanking our hosts this evening, Bishop Edgar Van and Elder Sheila Van and the Second Ebenezer community. Thank you for having us in your beautiful home, and to Councilman Scott Benson, who repeatedly extended the invitation. I think he set a precedent. I'm sure it's been a long time since the mayor of Detroit delivered the state of the city on the east side. Thank you for the invitation. You know, it wasn't that long ago that you turn on the TV and you would see the mayor and the council bitterly fighting as the city spiraled into bankruptcy. What you're seeing today is very different. You see a mayor and a council working in partnership to rebuild this city. And I'm going to start today the way I start all my speeches, by introducing the partners, because everything we're talking about today is only possible because we're working together. And we have to start with our leader, the person who's restored professionalism and civility to council meetings and made his people be proud of the Detroit City Council again, Council President Brenda Jones. It's okay, she's great. This council's strongest voice for creating job opportunities for returning citizens and giving them a real role in Detroit's recovery, Councilmember Janae Ayers. The councilman who's taken the leader in foreclosure prevention, going out himself and knocking on doors, telling how people they can stay in their homes, Councilman Gabe Leland. Maybe the most energetic council person I've ever met. The co-chair of the Immigration Task Force. By her force of personality this year, Detroit is going to start issuing municipal ID cards to citizens who don't have them. Councilmember Raquel Castaneda-Lopez. A woman who's going to be very busy this year with 3 elections. We have to remember to vote 3 times. We're very lucky to have her, our outstanding city clerk, Janice Winfrey. On this side, the financial leader of the city council, the person who keeps the budget straight, a force for the balanced budgets we have today, President Pro Tem George Cushenberry. Our leader on every economic development and jobs issue, the councilman from this district, Scott Benson. The person you can always count to stand up for affordable housing for the homeless, who goes out herself on pit count night to count the homeless in our community, Councilmember Mary Sheffield. The man who sponsored the first ordinance to put cameras in our gas station that led to what we have today is the extremely successful Green Light Project, Councilman Andre Spivey. And the man responsible for the fact we're finally going to start shutting down marijuana dispensaries in the city of Detroit, Councilman James State. You can see the difference of talents and interests, and by all working together, we are getting to where we want to be. And as we stand here together tonight, we're all proud that our progress in Detroit's comeback is drawing positive attention from across America and is inspiring hope and optimism across Detroit. But every one of us is well aware that there are sections of the city that are not feeling the recovery yet. We know we've just started. We know we've got a long way to go, and we're going to do it together. But tonight, let's start with the successes. And the most obvious success you notice driving up here, which is the street lights. Okay? Remember when it seemed impossible to get street lights on in the city of Detroit? In the last 2 years, Lorna Thomas and the Public Lighting Authority and that team there has put on 61,000 lights. They're going to finish this spring more than a year ahead of schedule. There was a time when the ambulance response time in this town was the worst in America, more than 18 minutes. 2 years later, it's been cut in half and is now reaching the national standard of 8 minutes. We're so proud of what our EMTs are doing. And And not only are our EMTs getting there faster, but our firefighters are being cross-trained as medical first responders, because sometimes when you're having that heart attack, the closest vehicle to you isn't the ambulance, it's the fire station and the firehouse next door. And we have had several cases where we've saved lives with a critical intervention. And I want to say to our firefighters and our EMTs tonight, I know that the police and fire in this city, these officers who put their lives on the line, are paid significantly less than their colleagues in the surrounding communities. We took a step in the right direction with the police department last December, and I will tell you this year we're going to find a way to recognize your contribution and start to improve your pay for all of our firefighters and EMTs. And the buses are running on schedule for the first time in nearly 20 years. Just took a little help from Vice President Joe Biden and about 80 new buses, new drivers, new cameras on the buses, transit police, and help from our state legislators. The Detroit legislators helped change the law so we can put more road money into transits, which is allowing us to add 24-hour service on Woodward and Gratiot and Grand River, and we're going to extend that 24-hour service to several other routes in this city this year. And here's a fascinating statistic. We are now taking more than 100,000 passengers a week more than we did last year, riding the DDOT buses. But the single greatest difference might be one you don't see every day, and that's the one that involves managing our finances. We finished the last fiscal year, June 30th, 2015, with a balanced budget for the first time since 2002. We're now 4 months from the end of this fiscal year, 2016. Our revenues are ahead of budget, our expenses are under budget, and we're going to finish with a balanced budget for the second straight year. Yeah. And this week, we're going to send Council a budget for 2017, and it will be balanced for the third straight year. We're finally bringing financial discipline to this community. But I have to tell you, everything on the financial front is not rosy. We do have some clouds looming. I know my colleagues up here know this, and we're just going to have to deal with it. And the cloud that's looming is that the latest report shows we have a $491 million deficit in our pension fund, which starts to come due in 2024. Now, you might say, 2024, why are you talking to us about it today? But the way that you deal with these problems, it's not a crisis today, it's a problem today, is you start to deal with it early, you deal with it honestly, and we can manage it. And the other reason we start talking about it today is we are going to keep our pension fund solvent. We are going to keep our promise to our retirees. It's been broken once, and we're going to make darn sure it never gets broken again. The second question is, how could this happen? And that question is a lot more disturbing, because when we left bankruptcy, the emergency manager and the consultants left us with a plan of adjustment that said the pension fund would be fully funded. And just months later, the independent analysis showed there was a shortfall. Our CFO, John Hill, is digging into this along with the State Financial Review Commission. But preliminarily, it looks to be this. It looks like the emergency and the manager and the consultants used the wrong assumptions. I mean, it is hard to believe, and I hope this turns out not to be true, but it does appear that way, that in particular, they used outdated mortality tables. They assumed people were not going to live as long as they were to make the numbers look more favorable. And so we're going to have to address this problem. And so we're going to do it honestly and forthrightly. And here's what we're going to do. One, we're not going to panic. This is an issue for 2024, and we're going to get on top of it now. It's a manageable issue. Two, we are not asking anybody for a bailout, okay? Right? We have said all along we want the right to self-determination. This wasn't a problem of our creation, but we're going to manage it, and we aren't going to anybody asking them to bail us out. Third, We're going to start putting in money right now. The 2016 budget is doing so well, we're in a position to put an additional $10 million in. And the budget that I'm sending to council this week will put another $10 million in next year. And on top of that, John Hill and the Financial Review Commission are going to be bringing in a national expert. It's not that cities in America haven't dealt with this problem. We're going to deal with it very thoughtfully. Fourth, I have directed Chuck Ramey, our Chief Litigation Officer, to review any possible legal claims against the consultants. I want to know how we could have paid these guys $177 million for the work they did, and once they're out of town, there's a $491 million hole just a few months later. I don't know whether it's actionable or not, but we're going to pursue it if there's any way we can. But our biggest focus is going to be this. It's 2016 and we have 8 years. The best way to be able to handle this problem is to grow the city. It's to get people to come back. It's to get businesses to come back. It's to get revenues up so that well ahead of 2024, we have succeeded so far we can manage this. That's what a growing city is going to do. And tonight I want to talk to you about what I think we can do to grow the city. And in my mind, there are 5 things, and they're all going to fit together. We got to get the violent crime down. Right? We got to remove the blight. We got to add jobs and business so everybody in Detroit has an opportunity. We got to cut the car insurance rates, and we got to provide quality schools. If we could do those things, how much better would this city be? And the thing is, I believe that the team that you're looking here, along with our partners in Lansing and Washington, can do just that. When it comes to the police department, the very first thing I want to say is thank you to the men and women of the Detroit Police Department for the outstanding job that they're doing. And thank you to Chief James Craig, who I consider to be one of the finest police chiefs in America. Everything in policing starts with trust from the community. And that's why I was so pleased when the chief and the police officers unions came forward and volunteered. We are going to be one of the first cities in America to demonstrate that body cameras work, that we can show people what these interactions actually occur. And in this year, we're going to start rolling them out and putting them on officers because we're confident of our men and women. And all we want to know is in each incident is what's the truth, and we'll stand behind it. Trust also requires an independent civilian board of police commissioners, and that board's powers had been suspended by the emergency manager. But I was very pleased when City Council in December, on the earliest possible date, voted to restore the full power to those police commissioners. They are an essential part of our public safety strategy, and I want to introduce them now. First, he has the privilege of being the host, one of the police commissioners, Bishop Edgar Vann. The chair of the Police Commission, Lisa Carter. Vice Chair, Willie Bell. And Commissioners Richard Shelby, Reginald Crawford, Willie Burton, Ricardo Moore, Conrad Mallett, Eva Garza DeWalsh, Betty Brooks, and Derek Sanders. We are so pleased to be working with you. And police commissioners will be glad to know our first order of business is put more officers on the street. Okay? Last year, we hired more than 100 police officers, got them on the street, and we took another 100 officers who were in desk jobs like dispatching and moved them to patrol and to other law enforcement positions. But it wasn't enough. It kept ahead of the retirements, but not much more. And the reason all right. I'm a great believer in free speech, but that was a little much. We wanted to put more police officers on the street last year, but we couldn't hire them because we were only paying $31,000 for starting officers. With the agreement we reached in December, that starting salary is now up to $36,000. We're starting to fill the academies with the new payroll system. We're going to take officers who are doing timekeeping payroll, move them back to the streets. We're going to put 200 more officers on the streets this year and give a quicker response time to Chief Craig and the team. And when those officers are on the street, we are going to back them with the latest technology, the best technology any police department's had. And we started, if you've seen it, with the Green Light Initiative, something that Councilman Spivey initiated originally and Chief Craig. But here's what we did. We went to gas station owners, places where people feel vulnerable in the city. And we said, we'd like you to light your gas station so bright you can read a magazine all the way to the edge. We want high-definition color cameras that you'll send by internet to police headquarters, and we will monitor your police station on a real-time basis from headquarters. We're in the early stages. Nobody's tried it this way. It's been about 6 weeks, and the results have already been remarkable. We had an instance right off the bat where somebody was shot and said that the person who shot him he had seen earlier at the gas station. They went up to the gas station, found his color picture on the gas station camera, had him arrested within a matter of hours. We had an incident where a little boy crossing the street was hit by a taxi and a hit-and-run driver. But the camera from all the way across the street was so vivid, it caught the driver, and that hit-and-run driver has been arrested and is now in jail. And this weekend, one of our officers at headquarters saw a car pull in to one of these gas stations to get gas, and there's something just seemed funny about it. They looked it up. It turned out it was a car that had been carjacked in Southfield 2 days before. They called in the patrol car, and they arrested the alleged carjacker because he got his gas at the wrong gas station. And Chief Craig and I love watching some of these videos because you'll see two guys in the gas station start to push each other. And one of them will point up at the sign saying, "Monitor to the police headquarters." And they go, "Okay." And they'll head out. We now have 34 more gas stations, party stores, drive-through restaurants ready to go. We're going to add 4 per week, and we'll have between 100 and 200 locations in this city. We're going after gun violence in a different way. We're doing it in a program that we call Ceasefire, something that was modeled in Boston. And we're doing it in partnership with Wayne County Prosecutor Kim Worthy and with U.S. Attorney Barb McQuaid. And Ceasefire is an amazing thing. We started in the 5th and 9th Precinct, the east side of Detroit, the most violent sections of this city. And what we do is this. We call in gang members who are on probation, on parole, they're ordered by court. They come in and sit in a room in a church, about 30 of them in the front. And the chief and I and some ministers and the like and the U.S. attorney are there, and then there's a whole group of community around them. And we bring these young men in, and so far, the ones I've been at, they've been young men, and we say to them, we don't want to arrest you. We don't want to lock you up. But you're on a bad path, and you have 2 choices. We now have a database of gun offenses and gang offenses, and we've got the full force of the federal, county, and city governments, and if you commit another crime, we're coming after you. On the other hand, we have a whole group of folks here in social services and job training, and if you choose that alternative, we will support you in changing your life, right? Never going to work, right? And it's a little tense. You're sitting there looking at 30 gang members, and it doesn't always work. And we had one who we intervened with last July, who we said, you're on a wrong path. You need to get off it. And an 18-year-old young man, in December, he was arrested for murdering a 17-year-old at the Eastland Mall. We lost 2 lives that day. The 17-year-old who was killed and the 18-year-old who, if he's convicted, will spend the rest of his life in prison. And it's a reminder of what we had at stake. But this November call-in was pretty remarkable. We're starting to see turn. We actually have people who aren't being ordered to come in who are coming in voluntarily. The National Ceasefire people said they never saw that before. But in this last group, we had one young man who's gotten a job now. He's working on 8 Mile in a retail store. We got another young man in an office in Redford. Another one, these are all from the November call-in, who was working on a manufacturing facility in the western part of Wayne County and just got promoted to lead on his line. There's some talent in here that we are losing in this city. And my favorite was a young man that night who came up to me and told me that he was going to take it to heart. He was going to go back to school. And I have to say I was a little skeptical. And I've gotten a report that in January he started college at a small school in the South. We are having some effect. But for those who are not listening, we have had the full force of the U.S. Attorney's Office prosecuting multiple people from the 7 Mile Bloods. Kim Worthy and her team have had gun prosecutors with us every step of the way. And so it sounds good. How are we doing? Well, you know I'm into metrics. So in the first 2 months of this year, shootings and homicides, we have 12 precincts in the city. Shootings and homicides are just about where they were last year, except in the 5th and 9th precinct combined, the shootings and homicides are down 30% from a year ago. The 9th precinct is especially amazing. It was far and away the most violent precinct in this city last year, and at this time this year it's one of the lowest in homicides. What we're doing, I believe, is starting to work. And in April, Chief Craig and the U.S. Attorney and the prosecutor are taking this to 2 precincts on the west side. And we're going to keep going. We're going to deliver a clear message that if you use a gun in a crime, we're coming after you. If you want to change your life, this whole community will wrap their arms around you, and we're going to see if we can't change the direction here. For those who don't, however, we've got more resources. There are more than 1,000 individuals today with an outstanding warrant in the city of Detroit for a gun crime. They're carjackers, they're armed robbers, they're shooters, they carry concealed weapons. We have not in the past had the resources to go after them. And so you can see what's happening. People think, I can commit a crime with a gun, I can get away with it. Chief Craig has this week formed a new fugitive apprehension unit. 9 officers whose entire job is going to be to follow up on these warrants and arrest every single person with an outstanding warrant for committing a gun crime. But we're going to back them with technology. We're adding license plate readers to our police officers' cars. Now, this has been done in a lot of places, and normally it's to get people with outstanding speeding tickets. You might want to pay your speeding tickets if you've got them, but that's not really what we're going after. We are taking this license plate reader technology, and we're loading the 1,000 wanted criminals with gun crimes, the cars they own, in there, so that any time a patrol car is going down the street, if they pass one of those cars from somebody who's wanted, an alert's going to go off in the patrol car and tell them to turn around and get them. This is modern technology. And then in April, we're going to load their pictures in. We've got their pictures from mugshots. We got their pictures from Facebook page. It's amazing, the sophistication. And here's what we got. There's something now called facial recognition. We're going to load those 1,000 faces in, and every one of these guys goes in and fills up his car at the wrong gas station. The alert's going to go off and say, there's our wanted criminal. And this is the message that we have in this city. We're tired of the gun violence. We're not putting up with it anymore. We may not have the resources to get everybody, but we do have the resources to get those who commit a crime with a gun. And so what I say to everybody here is, our murder rate, even though it's been down 3 years in a row, is still 5 times higher than Boston or New York. In those cities, they settle their beefs without using guns. Whatever your beefs are, whatever your activities are, leave the guns at home. And that, I think, is going to be a strategy that will work. For those of you who are out there who are business people, for those of you who are out there who are business people and want to know what you can do to help. And I'm about to ask people to hire our young people for summer jobs. And if you would listen instead of shouting, I think this message would be important. Because if there are business people out there that can do something to help, we need summer jobs for our young people. 2 years ago, we had only 2,500 kids in summer jobs. You could see them wandering the streets. So last year, I went to the people like Tanya Allen and Skillman and City Connect, and I said, you had 2,500 people last summer. How many applied? She said 5,000. I said, fine, we're going to create 5,000 summer jobs. Alexis Wiley and our team went across the city. We lined up 5,000 summer jobs. We actually got 5,600 kids hired. But $11,000 applied. These kids want to work. So this year we're redoubling our effort. We've set as a goal to hire 8,000 young people this summer, and if you've seen the effect it has on these young kids, they get a paycheck, they get to work on time, they know what it's like to dress at work, what it's like to talk at work. So a week ago Saturday, we had our first sign-up day at a church on the east side. It opened at 9 o'clock, and I went there. And at 9 o'clock in the morning, there was a line more than a block long of 14 and 15-year-old kids lining up to get a job for this summer. And I want to acknowledge at this point one of our partners in this, one of the people that's helping us build it to 8,000, and that's the man who believes in this deeply, Wayne County Executive Warren Evans. So if you want to help this summer, go to the Grow Detroit's Young Talent website. Hire a kid. It's $1,700. If you can't afford to pay the whole $1,700, we'll pay half. Take a kid, change a summer, change a life.